Thanks, Commander. Hey, first of all, it's so great to see you all again. Appreciate all the kind words. It's been about 7 months in a cancer battle, but looks like I'm getting good reports. Made it through surgeries and 5 months of chemotherapy, so it's really great to see you all again. A couple of announcements. I've talked before about the Pact Act, the Promise to Address Comprehensive Toxins Act. There's an important deadline, if y'all haven't talked about this before, August 9th. If you think as a Vietnam-era veteran or a post-9/11 veteran that you even might have a Pact Act claim, there's an important deadline of August 9th. If you can just file an intent to file form by August 9th, if you get benefits under the Pact Act, they can be made retroactive to last August 10th, 2022. After August 9th, that retroactive provision goes away. Your benefits will start from the time you file an intent to file. So if you're even thinking about a Pact Act claim, all you got to do is file an intent to file form. Doesn't have to be a complete claim. You can always withdraw it later on. So I'm telling veterans, if you're even thinking about a Pact Act claim, go ahead and get that intent to file in. And you can always beef it up later with all the paperwork necessary. That's an important deadline. It's a year's worth of benefits it could save you. The other one's a little interesting, a little bit of trivia, but something that the state legislature just did, and the governor's signing the bill tomorrow. Believe it or not, all over Alabama and all over the United States, funeral homes hold remains, cremated remains of veterans that had no family members, and nobody legally can claim those remains. And there was no legal provision in Alabama for anybody to legally take possession of those human remains and get them interred in a veteran cemetery. The legislature just passed a new law that allows veteran service organizations and our department, the Alabama Department of Veterans Affairs, to legally take possession of those cremated remains and get them properly buried with military honors and veteran cemeteries. So we've started that recently, and that's a nice benefit that the legislature listened to us on. It's just something of honor to do for those veterans. So I think that's all I had, Commander. Thanks.
About the Veterans Home Enterprise.
Oh, an update. So yeah, we are building a 5th state veterans home down in Enterprise, right outside Fort Novosel, formerly known as Fort Rucker. It is about 60% done with construction. I'm going down there tomorrow. We anticipate opening it in the summer of 2024. Again, that'll be our 5th home. We do have a waiting list to get into our state veterans home, so we're hoping it's going to alleviate that big chunk of that waiting list, and it's going to be a state-of-the-art long-term care facility for veterans in Alabama. That reminds me of one other thing. We're expanding our state veteran cemetery down at Spanish Fort, adding about 4,000 burial plots. So it'll get us through the next 10 years or more. The contractor has put in place all of the burial vaults in the ground. They dug out 10 feet of dirt. We placed the burial vaults in place, and they'll be backfilling with dirt and covering it with sod, so we'll be good for the next 10 years, provide a dignified burial place for our fellow veterans. Yes, sir.
Got a question. Is there anything in our state that is set up to help homeless veterans themselves as far as getting them housing or that kind of thing?
It's kind of a loose network. There's no central office. The federal VA does a little bit. We do something through our outreach and engagement office. There are a lot of nonprofits that provide services to homeless veterans, and we have kind of an informal network. When we find out about an individual homeless veteran, virtually all the time, we can get them to one of those nonprofits that gets them set up. And there's a bunch of them. Like down in Mobile, there's a big organization called Housing First Incorporated, which is a non-profit. They get a lot of homeless veterans into shelters, into temporary housing. But it ranges all the way to up in Clay County, there's a non-profit called Samson Strength that has temporary housing, and they try to give training to veterans. I talked last week with David Payne. I think some of you know him. He's Vietnam Veterans of America, who's trying to establish a tiny home village in the Troy area. And then I talked to another nonprofit in Birmingham last week that's trying to do the same thing up in the Birmingham area. And that's kind of a wave across the country, or tiny home communities for homeless veterans. And they've been really successful. So if we can pull that off in Alabama, it'll be a big benefit. But best thing, if you know of an individual homeless veteran, you contact us. We can probably find a local nonprofit organization that can help them out. And sometimes they're church-based organizations.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Mr. Kent, how about homeless lady veterans? A lot of them walk in the street, assaulted, problems. We finally got those gynecologists on board to do something about that, but the ladies that are out there, as we just heard, all of the attention is being given to the male veterans. But do you have anything in your office that's going to shed some light, some help, hope, and assistance to our lady veterans?
Yeah, there are actually several nonprofits around Alabama that provide shelter services to female veterans. There's one actually right here in Montgomery. Those are usually very discreet operations because a lot of them are victims of domestic violence, so they're not highly advertised because they don't want people to know where they are.
That's right.
I visited one last week in Montevallo. It's called the Elder Justice Center, but they have a shelter there for female veterans, and they're looking to expand their facility. It's pretty impressive. They provide legal advice, assist abused women veterans. Again, it's kind of a loose network around the state, but if you know of a female veteran in need of those services, I tell people, contact us. We can call on that loose network and try to get them to the right place.
Right, because we did have one right here in a particular section of the city that had some illnesses, so it may be folding, but David Payne was
Yeah, David was
there
heavily involved in that.
to
Yeah.
help set it up.
Yeah.
But they need our lady veterans, just as male veterans, need some specific help
Yeah.
that's not pertaining to males.
And we do house female veterans in our state veterans homes, and it's a growing number. That's a growing population of female veterans.
All right, well,
Yes, sir.
I'll work with that.
I've recently read or heard, I can't remember right now, but that they're wanting veterans to register to be buried at the veterans,
You can.
burials, like.
Yeah. I recommend
Is
that.
that true?
It is true. And it doesn't
Yeah,
obligate you for burial there. I mean, your family can change their mind when you pass away and just say, sorry, I know they were pre-registered. What pre-registration does is, it saves the funeral home and the family from the scramble of having to amass the paperwork, DD-214s and all the registration paperwork. Especially in our state veteran cemetery, we highly recommend you pre-register. You can go to our website and find out how to do that. And all it means is your paperwork is all done so that when you pass away, funeral home and the family are ready to go. They don't have to provide any other paperwork. And literally, I get calls from family members who say, Papa just died. He wanted to be buried in a veteran cemetery. We have no idea how to go about that. And the first thing I ask them is, well, do you have his DD-214? And they say, what's that? And then we go in several days on a mad scramble just trying to find their DD-214, and that could have been avoided if they did the pre-registration. And again, it does not obligate you. It's just a nice to have. It gets you on the list. Your paperwork's done. But the family, at the last minute, can say, we changed our mind. We want to bury him in a family plot instead.
There was also a part that said you would have to pay. Is that true?
We don't charge for
That's
pre-registration.
what I thought.
No.
I was reading where there possibly a $500 charge for maybe something.
That's a
extra.
scam. If somebody's charging $500 to help pre-register, that's a scam.
Thank you. Just needed it clear.
All right. Thank you.